So welcome everybody here to another demonstration by yours truly, Chef Bravo. We're going to be playing with some fresh cranberries today. And the reason I chose this particular topic is because we are coming up on Thanksgiving, and there's always a need for a plant-based, non-sugar, sort of compliant cranberry relish. So I'm gonna do two of them for you. I'm gonna do a raw one and then a cooked one. And hopefully you guys will like it. The first one is, I don't remember the page number, but it's off of the Bravo Express cookbook. The second one, I just decided to do a second one just so that there's be more content for you guys. Sound good?
Yeah.
So it's a very simple concept. It kind of touches a little bit on that, what I did a little bit earlier for you guys when we're talking about combining different flavor profiles so that you get a flavorful dish, whatever it may be, in this case a relish, but it could be a stir fry, a dressing, a salad, whatever the case may be. We're just using contrasting flavors in order to achieve a nice end product. Sound good? Okay. So in this case, we're gonna add 4 cups of fresh cranberries. These have been washed and picked, so all the funky ones I took out. We're gonna add 10 dates. So these are medjool dates. And what I'm doing here is I'm playing off of a sweet and sour. That's all it is. I'm sure you guys have heard of sweet and sour sauce, sweet and sour fill in the blank. Okay, that's all this is a sweet and sour combination put together. And so I got 3, 4, 5. This is very important. I always use whole dates. I don't use pitted dates because there's always the one time when they don't catch them all and then somebody's chipping a tooth. Also, the pits on the dates are extremely hard. They're like rocks, so you can break your food processor if you don't make sure to remove them out. So if I know that 10 dates are going in, I make sure to count the pits. 10 should be getting tossed out of the way. All right. So now that I have my base here, the sweet and sour, now all I got to do is just sort of what should we call it?
Incorporate?
No, not incorporate, but I just want to do it up a little bit more. So if I just do cranberries and dates, it'll be okay. It'll be sort of tasty. It'll have a nice texture, but it won't have any depth to it. That's what I'm trying to say. It won't have any depth to it. And also, it might be a little bit too chunky because there's no liquid in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit more depth to it, in this case, we're going to do some orange zest as well as orange juice. So now with the oranges, I'm sort of somewhere in the middle. Oranges are not necessarily all sweet, and they're not all sour. They're kind of tart, somewhere in the middle. So it kind of goes along with what I have already in here, but it just gives me a little bit more depth to it, to where when I taste that spoonful of this relish, it'll have a sort of a lasting finish. In addition to it, this doesn't make or break the dish. It just adds a little bit more texture and a little bit more nutrition, quote unquote. So the recipe calls for a couple tablespoons of ground flaxseed. So this is primarily just to make it extra healthy. I would not, however, advertise that to the people that you're serving it.
Right.
Okay. All right. Now I'll start at a pulse just to sort of get it going. And that's about it. So now what I have here again is that combination of the sweet and sour with the addition of the orange and the flaxseed, just to give it a little bit more depth. This is something I serve at my Thanksgiving dinner table for now 10-ish years now. So, and you saw me, it took just a couple of minutes. If you don't have a room full of people to entertain, you can make this really quick. Now, give it a little taste. It's a perfect balance. If you just took a handful of cranberries and just shoved those in your mouth, you'd have a really hard time to actually chew them and swallow them because they're super sour. If you're just popping dates in your mouth, you get 2, 3 maybe, but after that third one, it just becomes too much. It's just too sweet, overwhelming. Put the two together, you can eat this for quite some time. Now, I'm gonna set some aside for you guys to taste here at the end. And then I will add that optional touch. So as a Mexican household, if it's not spicy, there's no use for it, kind of a thing. So I always like to add a half of a jalapeno. And you'd be surprised, like I heard somebody go, thing. Just like when I said, you're just popping cranberries or dates in your mouth, a couple bites in, it's just overwhelming. Obviously, if you're popping some, whole fresh chilies in your mouth, if you're not used to it, it's gonna have a strong reaction. But because you're combining them with those other ingredients, you'd be surprised how pleasant this might actually be for you, just because there's enough contrast in there with all the other ingredients that you can actually eat this and be like, oh, that's actually good. It's got a nice zing to it, but it's not overwhelming. So there we go. I could probably eat add the other half of chili, but we'll just leave it at that. Sound good? And yeah, just a very simple, put some flavors together, contrasting flavors, and you end up with this nice overall dish. Questions? Good? This is pretty simple, no rocket science here. I'm gonna add some chopped dates here to the pot because I need this guy here so that I can do the spicy one. If you've ever made cranberry relish, you'll notice the recipe calls for quite a bit of sugar. Again, because those cranberries are just so sour, so tart. And so for this guy, I started out with some chopped dates. I had already bit them and put them in there. And so we'll throw our cranberries in there. And for visual, because it's also around, it's this particular time of year, I brought in some persimmons. These are fuyu persimmons. Fuyus, we can cut like a tomato. So I'm gonna cut this guy here. I'm gonna cut the top and bottom. You can certainly eat the skin. It just has a little bit of a harder texture to it. So I'm gonna go ahead and just cut this all the way around so that I can remove the skin. And then something important about persimmons, I have not yet figured out when and how it is that some of these have those pits and when they don't. So anytime I use a persimmon, I always, if I'm gonna cut it up and dice it, I always make my cut through the whole persimmon. Sometimes if you cut from above, you could just get it perfectly between the two seeds. So I always like to cut through, no pits.
Like a lima bean or something.
Yeah, they're about the shape of a lima bean. Thank you. But dark brown. Okay. So now I got persimmons in there, and I had some already pre-diced earlier. Okay. Can you guys think of anything that's missing here? If I turn this on, which I'm about to do, what am I missing? Some liquid. Some liquid too, just to get the, in this case I'm adding a little bit of pineapple juice. It could be apple juice. It could actually be water. All I'm trying to do is to have a liquid there that is a heat conductor. It takes the heat from the hot metal of the pan and transfer it over to the other ingredients. Without it, the heat still transfers, but it does it at too high of a intensity. So you can actually start sort of browning and then even burning some of the cranberries and the persimmon in there. So you just need a little bit of water to act as the heat conductor, just so that you have enough time so that the cranberries then start to heat up and release their own liquid. And then after that, you're good to go. Make sense? Okay. We are done here. And I'll show you what this guy looks like. So this now has more of that look of that cranberry relish, with the addition of the lighter orange chunks of the persimmon. So it has, color-wise, to me it's a little bit more appealing because there's two different colors rather than this just sort of dark red jelly. Either one of these recipes, very simple, very quick, and you know the end result is pretty tasty. So again, just don't tell people that it's healthy at the table, otherwise they won't touch it. Or maybe you tell them that because you don't want people to touch it and you want it all for yourself. Yeah, that works too.